So I got onto Twitter. It wasn't just me, it was Walker Bragman, a journalist, because Glenn was making the point that we need to just enough. We need to open up the schools. It's just destroying children's lives that they've been out of school this long, and the long term effects on children's lives, and social development and socialization is you gotta compare those risks to the risk of death or other things. And my point to Glenn, and he also told me to fuck off because I don't have children, which I thought was kind of condescending. But Jenn has children, so Jenn,
yeah, he didn't respond to me. I did comment as well on the
right.
thread.
So according
I
to
told
Glenn,
him I'm a trained teacher. I was a teacher. I also have children, and I agree with Jordan. He didn't seem to notice.
So Glenn's argument was only about death, and used, to be clear, right-wing talking points about car accidents. This is what right-wingers say after mass shootings and many other things. Well, more people die in car accidents every year. You're going to outline driving? And Colin has this. We did it. That was 1 year of car accidents, 38,000 deaths in 2020. That was 1 week of COVID deaths. Not children, but just COVID deaths, period, 9,000. And then extrapolate that over a month. Over a month, it was almost at the amount of people that die per year. And these are the numbers recently. Why aren't you just as concerned about the risk to their physical bodies and their cognitive development? Children's bodies are not fully formed till about 2021. Mind, cognitive development. So do you know the long-term effects of this? Which he just wouldn't answer. Well, Colin, if you could show this. One data point, but I think it's relevant. 1 in 7 children who test positive go on to have long COVID. Studies suggest. This is from the United Kingdom. Compared survey data from about 3,000 people aged 11 to 17 who tested positive for COVID-19 in England between September 2020 and March this year, and 3,700 children who tested negative. The study's findings suggest that long COVID was the likely cause of 1 in 7 children who had tested positive experiencing 3 or more symptoms 15 weeks after infection. 1 in 14 children reported 5 or more symptoms. So I want to be fair, Jenn. I criticize people who cite like some random study in Alaska or some random study in, Sweden. But this is the United Kingdom, NHS. They're comparable to the United States, not in population, but just healthcare. And this is data that shows 1 in 7 children are having long-term symptoms, which that study does not indicate. Okay, if they're having long-term symptoms, we probably don't know how long are we talking. Do the symptoms go away and then come back? So this was my whole point to Glenn and others. It's not just about the death count of the risk of death. It's also about the risk to damaging their bodies and minds. And now we have some data indicating, yeah, there is some long haul going on in children.
So this is a very, this topic to me is very complicated I get all the pieces, but the answer to it is not complicated, if that makes sense. So what I'm saying is there are a lot of complications. There are a lot of things, including for me personally. But the answer is we need to keep kids safe. I won't go into too much detail because it's, my kids are a bit older, and it's, their call when to share their info or whatever. But my kids have really, really struggled. I have one child who is on the autism spectrum, and routines are very important and always have been for him. But so COVID is, it's hard to not reveal everything because that wouldn't be right to do, while also trying to explain what I mean. So kind of bear with me. It's thrown him off course to not be in school, to not be around other kids, to not be able to socialize. My other son, who's neurotypical, he also struggles in very different ways. And he's going to be okay. But for other kids, and I'm talking about it now, an aggregate of kids that I know, it's devastating and hard and horrible to have to be out of school. The loss of knowledge. As a teacher, I know that even when it's just, summer vacation, you have to do a lot of review the next year, because a lot of children don't get in-home instruction, or keep up with their reading at home, or whatever. And that's understandable. Parents don't have time to be a teacher for their school on top of their, in many cases, multiple jobs, but there is a loss of knowledge that goes on there. And so as teachers, we always, help bring back what they learned the previous year. You spend a month or two on that before you can even move on to the new stuff. And so now you have COVID, which the kids were out of school the year before last for a huge chunk. They were out for, but by out, I mean out of the building for all of last year. And then now a lot of kids are returning. I can tell you the decision that I made is, my older son is vaccinated, and for us, he not because we can personally afford it, but he is in a very good school for kids like him, and he has 5 kids total in his class, like in his entire grade. So they're very easily able to socially distance. So I've made the decision to send him to school. All that is to say that it's complicated, and I get it. I get what I don't understand why Glenn is making the arguments he's making in the way that he's making them. But for those who are arguing in good faith, we have to send our kids back to school. It's time, on and on. I have to say, I get why you're saying that. And there are devastating effects to learning, to memory, to social development, but it's better than death. It's better than living with Longhauler for the rest of their lives. It's better than passing it along to an older family member who passes, whatever. We need to keep safe. We need to be smart. And it's infuriating to me to see arguments like Glenn's.
I just want to be clear, Jen. It's not just Glenn. This is a whole.
Of course.
Yeah, this is a whole bunch. Not just Glenn. He's just the most, with the highest followers.
Well, yeah, and Zaid Jelani, formerly with The Intercept, who's gone, has different opinions now. It makes me angry because in certain cases, and I'm not speaking of a specific person at this time when I say this, it is not said in good faith, and it's said out of contrarianism, but that is going to lead to deaths. And especially for those who have large platforms, to be contrarian, just to do it, or even if you think you're right, but to make comparisons that don't make any sense, you're putting propaganda out there that is going to get people killed. And I don't know if you have this pulled up, Jordan, but Glenn said the exact opposite of his point here.
I don't.
So I hope you have that right.
He did when it was really bad in Brazil. Walker pointed that. He said the exact opposite of his argument now. And when Glenn was called out on that, he said, well, this was before there was a vaccine, which doesn't make sense because most children aren't vaccinated, so they don't have the protection of the vaccine. And, the other thing I'll say at the end of the day, and I said this to someone on Twitter, and again, I don't have a kid yet. So Jen is the authority in this discussion. But sometimes you're in an unprecedented situation. Sometimes you're in a situation that there are no good options. It's a menu of horrendous options. And you have to pick, we talk about lesser of two evils. In this case, it is the lesser of horrible options because it is bad. I know some of what Jen's talking about, her personal situation. I know other people that have had tough situations with their kids not being in school, childcare, the strain on marriages. It's not good. But what is the alternative? Sending your kids into a contagion box where, okay, maybe the data shows they won't die, but you also don't know how it will affect them getting COVID. Where I just showed you, at least in England, we're having 1 out of 7 children age 11 to 17 having long haul symptoms.